Good morning, YouTube. The DUI guy is back, and today we are going to be talking about a very sought after topic, as I've learned, the First Amendment Auditors. Now, first of all, I just want to give you all a few updates. First of all, many of you may not know this, especially ones that don't know me in my personal life. I have 80 days sober. I decided to quit alcohol on December 12th, and today is my 80th day, so woohoo. Second, thank you all. 3,000 subs. I think I hit that mark maybe yesterday. No, not yesterday. I'm sorry. Last week. I can't remember exactly. So super excited about that as well. And also, brand new update. Yesterday in Carroll County, Kentucky, I had a jury trial that went. One of the most amazing courtrooms I've ever tried a case in. It was the most amazing judge. The prosecutor was extremely good. I mean, his closing, I wanted to bite his head off during his closing. It was really, really good. And the jury was actually split. I later learned after when I talked to them, since you're allowed to discuss the case with them after the case is over, because, you know, double jeopardy and all that, and none of that really matters. They basically were split 3-3. Three of them were voting for guilty, 3 voting for not guilty. And luckily they came back. They finally were able to understand that my client was not guilty of the DUI, and they came back. It took them 75 minutes. That's why it took them so long, because they were split. They couldn't decide, and they had to convince each other one way or the other. And luckily they went my way. So you'll be seeing that probably later this month when I get the tape. Now, let's dive right in. So first of all, I just want to make a few caveats, because I'm sure this is a very sensitive topic. There's a lot of different opinions on this issue all over the YouTube, all over the internet, what have you. First and foremost, I am not a constitutional law expert by any means. Now, I obviously use the Constitution regularly, but I'm a litigator. I'm not a constitutional analyst. I'm not a professor by any means, okay? So do not expect any fancy schmancy analytics with regard to the First Amendment issues. However, you will have questions. You will have questions that I will not have answers to, okay? So be ready for that. I will be interacting with chat. I'm ignoring chat for now as I go through the motions, but we will be doing Q&A at the end of this. Just understand that this is a mere outsider looking in to something that I think is very important, very relevant, and you will see what I mean by the time that this live stream is over. Also, very important, I've already checked chat before we started. People are asking about listen, I'm not going to cover current events, okay? I do not have time to research that or understand it. That's not the point of this video. So if you're here to start asking questions and here to want to hear me discuss what is going on in the world of First Amendment auditors as of last week, this is the wrong video for you, okay? I'm not going to be talking about that. So let's begin. Who are the First Amendment auditors? Obviously, most of us already know the answer to that question, but the actual definition, they're categorized as practitioners, as an American social movement of activism and civil journalism claiming to test constitutional rights, in particular, the right to photograph and video record in a public place. So we've all seen the videos, we've all read the articles, we've all heard on the issues on the topic. An individual will take typically a video camera, usually not a photo camera. They'll take a video camera to record in a public place. And what will they do? They will go somewhere near a police station, somewhere near a post office, or go inside the post office. Some other places I've seen, nobody really goes to a park because no one is going to get harassed in a park, right? So it's very confrontational in nature to begin with, hence why they call it an audit. It's as if if somebody is suspected to be not up to snuff on their taxes, for example, what does the IRS do? They audit them to make sure that everything is up to snuff, right? Well, same thing here. The individual believes, and this is why they call themselves the auditors. They audit the government with respect to the First Amendment. So it's kind of like a very interesting concept in and of itself to begin with. So why do they do it? They claim that the movement promotes transparency and open government. And that's interesting because the way I look at it, the way I see it, is kind of like it seems to be like a checks and balances system. So for example, our government has a built-in, I'm not sure how effective it is, but it's built-in checks and balances system of itself. We have the legislative, the executive, and the judicial branches, right? And they all keep checks on each other. So if an executive power, meaning the president, passes an order, for instance, we've all known from history, we're not going to cover politics here, but a court overturned the president's decision, and therefore immediately after that, the decision is no longer valid, right? It's overturned by the judicial branch. Or let's say a legislative branch passes a law, and the judicial branch, the judges look at it and say, no, this is unconstitutional, this can't work. So again, it usually passes through the judicial, but not always. I mean, you can have a legislative bill that passes that is overturned by an executive order, something like that. So checks and balances exist within there. The First Amendment auditor appears to be a fourth layer, or if you will, a layer to counteract the legislative, executive, and judicial collectively. So if you want to draw a triangle, I don't know if any of you have seen the one in civics, the legislative, executive, judicial, right? Well, if you take that triangle and shift it up and just draw a line and write the people below it, that seems what the First Amendment auditor is all about, right? It's the people affirmatively, actively pursuing an audit, a check, right, to balance the government. So what is their means of achieving their goal? Sometimes, not always, it can become dangerous or risky. How? Obviously, it's confrontational in nature. However, if you're not armed, you're not displaying any firearms, probably you're not going to run into any problems. I've seen some videos where it just ends peacefully. Sometimes it ends in arrest. There was, I believe, some arrests that have been made when these auditors would enter public buildings openly carrying, and that led to a lot of unnecessary confrontation. So I think this has to be done, again, there's no need for risky behavior to achieve the exact same thing. I mean, some people, I understand, they're going to have their own strong beliefs about the Second Amendment, which we'll actually talk about here today as well. But trying to combine the First and Second, kind of becoming like a dual First and Second Amendment auditor, right? Right to bear arms. Nowhere does it say, hypothetically, if it doesn't say concealed carry not permitted, well, what about open carry? You know, that's what they're testing and videotaping while they're doing it. So they're doing kind of like a dual role, like wearing two hats, you know. But we'll talk about that more in a minute. So auditors have been unlawfully detained, arrested, assaulted, had camera equipment confiscated, weapons aimed at them, had their homes raided by SWAT teams, and even shot for video recordings in public. So it can become dangerous, but for the most part, it doesn't seem to be too dangerous as long as you are. It's kind of hard to be confrontational and not confrontational. But I'm all for it. By the way, if you noticed, I am not trying to shut down the First Amendment auditors, and you will see why in a moment. So some police officials in big cities where this maybe has been happening more often than in other smaller places, maybe like Louisville. I don't think anyone has ever done one here to my knowledge, but maybe. I didn't affirmatively look for it or anything. But let's look at the law. Okay, so we got the First Amendment right. Okay, everybody knows. Now, somebody in the movement actually reached out to me prior to this and alerted me to one particular video, and I'm going to call him out by name, Steve Leto. He analyzes the eavesdropping rule. He doesn't mention, I believe in the video, if I remember correctly, the words First Amendment auditors per se, but but he does talk about kind of what they do, and he looks at it through the lens of the eavesdropping laws that he has, I think, in Michigan, which parallel the ones in California. Well, for all you First Amendment auditor aficionados out there, I think Mr. Leto is wrong. That's my opinion. And here's why, okay? California's wiretapping law, because he talks about eavesdropping specifically. So if a person is walking around, with a camera and they're recording stuff, well, there's a conversation potentially over here. There's a conversation over here. You're eavesdropping. That's his argument. Well, here's the problem with that. The California's wiretapping law is a two-party consent law. California makes it a crime to record or eavesdrop on any confidential communication. That's the key why I think he's wrong. Including a private conversation or telephone call without the consent of all parties to the conversation. See Penal Code Section 632 in California. The statute applies to confidential communications, conversations in which one of the parties has an objectively reasonable expectation. There it is. Objectively reasonable expectation that no one is listening in or overhearing the conversation. A California appellate court has ruled that this statute applies to the use of hidden video cameras to record conversations as well. Hidden, okay? If it's conspicuous, this is the key. If it's inconspicuous, if everybody can see it, okay? If everybody knows you're walking around, you got the camera right here, there is no way in hell that a jury will convict you of eavesdropping because you're not doing this in secret. And also, where's the motive, okay? You can't just look at the law and put it through take the First Amendment auditors, what they do and how they do it, and put it through a random law that you think is going to prohibit that. You have to, reasonableness is the key here. And I don't think Mr. Leto is being very reasonable, in my opinion. And here, again, here's why. It's got to be a two-party consent. So let's say two individuals meet in a private room, okay? I think some laws even talk about like any particular devices that can amplify. Amplifiers is another huge element in eavesdropping. Not in this maybe particular statute. Like I said, I've just glanced at it. It was enough for me to understand. There's no way that it applies. Again, because I'm a trial lawyer. I don't know if Mr. Leto tries cases, but if he were to get a case and he were a prosecutor and he would argue that the First Amendment auditor should be guilty of eavesdropping, I think I would crush him, okay? I would win in front of a jury. And again, here's why. It's a two-party consent. So let's say two people are in a building and they're talking about something private, something that pertains only to them and them alone. And you walk in, barge in, opening the door with a video camera, and they stop talking, okay? Well, let's say it's a public place. So let's say it's in a public restroom, okay, for instance, and there are just two of them in there. And you barge in the door with a video camera, which you probably shouldn't be doing, but I'm just trying to create a fact scenario where this would be maybe potentially possible. And then they stop talking, thinking that you left, but you continue to stand there and record knowing that there's a private conversation going on. That would be eavesdropping. That would be against the law, and you would be convicted of eavesdropping on a conversation that does not pertain to you, that is wholly private. And even though it's in a public sort of place, right? Again, I'm trying to create this as thinly as I can. But if you're walking down the street and two people are talking, sitting on a park bench, and they see somebody walking by, that's obvious. So if they're talking about private things and somebody spews something out and it gets recorded by the camera, that's on them, okay? The law is not black and white. Reasonableness, common sense always remains an element, okay? So you can't just look at the law in the black and white terms. And again, confidential communications. Somebody talking in public is not confidential by any means. Confidential means they objectively have reasonable expectation that no one else is listening. If you're standing in the middle of a post office and an auditor comes in with a camera and starts recording, right? Everybody anticipates that the person's going to hear them in the first place. It does not matter that they have a recording device. They're a person, first and foremost. They have ears. They can call the news and say, oh my God, you will not believe what I just heard. Well, do you have proof? Yeah, my brain, okay? That's a recording device, okay? So again, I think it's ludicrous to say that they're breaking the eavesdropping law. Now, are they legal in another sense? Obviously, the act of recording by itself, if done peacefully, is supported by the Constitution. First Amendment, right? Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, religion, all of those, they're all covered kind of in the same, obviously not religion, but you get my point. The rights exercised in a typical audit come from the First Amendment, the Fourth, the Fifth, and specifically the freedom of speech and the freedom of the press. There it is. That's the one I was looking for. And the freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures, and the right to remain silent. So the Seventh Circuit of the Federal Court of Appeals explained in ACLU versus Alvarez, the act of making an audio or audio-visual recording is necessarily included within the First Amendment's guarantee of speech and press rights as corollary to the right to disseminate the resulting recording, right? The right to publish or broadcast an audio or audiovisual recording would be insecure or largely ineffective if the antecedent act of making the recording is wholly unprotected. Boom. We have a case that flat out says it's legal. You can do it. It's just the question is the means you go about it, meaning, again, not the camera portion, the confrontational arena, okay? Openly carrying along with it, that brings you in a whole level of potential danger, okay? If you are, God forbid, do not try this on a military base, especially when there's a fence. You will get shot. We haven't heard of any of these cases because people are smart enough not to do it. Okay, that's government property. That would be idiotic to do so, okay? Because you are now a potential lethal threat. They don't know who you are, okay? That's why people don't do it. Don't do it. And they do it in post offices, which we'll address, by the way, in a moment. That one is an interesting one. So anyway, in my cursory research, it looks like the First, Third, Fourth, Fifth, Seventh, Ninth, and 11th circuits have held that recording the police in the course of their official duties is a clearly established right. So this seems to be universal. There's not a single circuit that I could find that says, you know what, you cannot record the police. No, it does not exist. Okay, because that would be so violative of the basic precept of our freedom in this country that I cannot fathom a situation where that would become unconstitutional, or I'm sorry, constitutional to be forced to stop the recording. You see what I'm saying? So what is their ultimate goal? Most auditors hope that nothing happens when they photograph to a place that they're legally allowed to be. You put yourself in places where you know chances, as one auditor said, the chances that there are cops that are going to be called to the scene, like maybe near a police station, maybe their headquarters, post office, etc. And are they going to uphold the Constitution, uphold the law, or break the law? And to them, there's the disconnect. What is the law? Am I allowed to record? Again, USPS is the prime example. We'll get to that in a second. In order, auditors seek to educate the public that photography is not a crime while exposing officers who stray from the law to stop what is perceived as illegal conduct. Many videos have I seen already where an officer calls a supervisor and the supervisor says, no, it's okay. Just let him go, leave him alone. And then they leave. The officers leave, and person continues recording. An auditor selects a public facility and then films an entire encounter with staff and customers alike. If no confrontation or attempt to stop filming occurs, then the facility passed the so-called audit. However, if an employee attempts to stop the filming event, the audit has been failed, right? So a lot of auditors will go to a place and then revisit it after the public has been educated in that particular place. And I have seen what they like to call rehabilitated government workers or whatever. It's kind of funny and interesting. Some auditors are concerned that if officers are willing to harass, detain, and arrest auditors who intentionally avoid doing anything that might be considered a crime, normal citizens might shy away from recording officers for fear of retaliation. Justice Jacques Wiener of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit wrote in 2017, federal appeals decisions in favor of an auditor detained for filming police officers. Filming the police contributes to the public's ability to hold the police accountable. Boom, there it is. Ensure that police officers are not abusing their power. Boom again. And make informed decisions about police policy. Boom, number 3. Easy, right? So again, all for it. One officer's opinion on them, he said, this is Sergeant Ryan Brett, the vice president of CalRO and works for the Corona Police Department in Riverside County, California, where there's probably a lot of freaking people, okay? So they had to address this publicly. He said, quote, honestly, as a law enforcement professional for the past 20 years, I have seen my share of video cameras and baiting of law enforcement. At no time have I felt a threat when someone with a camera was filming me, my police station, or anything to do with us as law enforcement. Remember, the audits are carefully planned to remain in a place that they can legally be, and there is no law about recording activity or buildings from a public place. End of story. They are well within their right to do so. And from my experience, the best response to an audit roaming around your police station, public areas, is to ignore them. That's from a cop, okay? The vice president of Corona Police Department, or I'm sorry, CalRO, California, I don't know what it stands for, is to ignore them. They eventually lose interest and move on to somewhere else where they can make headlines, okay? So that's Sergeant Ryan Brett of Corona PD in Riverside. Now let's talk about the United States Postal Service. This is an interesting one. The USPS has signs. Now it's a federal building, don't forget. Much like a courthouse that we have here downtown, the federal courthouse, I think it's the same principle. Don't quote me on this, I'm not 100%, but I think so. Poster 7. This is where most people get their panties in a twist, okay? The rules and regulations governing conduct on postal service property. That's the title of it. And the section I'm going to be talking about is the relevant one. Photographs for news, advertising, or commercial purposes. I think this would fall under commercial purposes. Photographs for news purposes, quote, photographs for news purposes may be taken in entrances, lobbies, foyers, corridors, or auditoriums when used for public meetings, except where prohibited by official signs. Except where prohibited by official signs. We'll look at that in a second. Or security force personnel, or other authorized personnel, or federal court order, or rule. A lot of ors, right? Other photographs may be taken only with the permission of the local postmaster or installation head. And this is from their website on the About page. Photography and filming for personal use. This is not poster 7. That was the first portion was. Now it's not. Now it's from their website. Photography and filming for personal use. Informal snapshots from handheld cameras for personal use may be allowed at the postmaster's discretion, provided that there's no disruption to postal service operations and that the pictures are taken from areas accessible to the public. In these cases, no prior permission is required from the Office of Rights and Permissions. However, no lighting or scaffolding may be set up, and no picture can depict any Postal Service employee, customer, security camera, or cover of mail, the exterior of a mail piece, which would show customer name and address, among other things. Postmasters may restrict any and all photography if they determine that it is disruptive or there are potential security concerns. So, post offices. That seems to be an anomaly. And here's why. I think, my own personal opinion, this is not law, okay? It says in poster 7, photographs for news purposes may be taken in entrances, lobbies, foyers, corridors, or auditoriums, basically everywhere, except where prohibited by official signs. And of course, we all know we're talking about that sign that says no filming, right? They always point to it. No, you see that sign? We don't know what, we can't explain it. It's always been there. So it's like I forget the experiment with the monkeys. If you have 6 monkeys in a room and every time one of them grabs the banana, they get like hit on the head, not hard, just enough to where it's unpleasant. Or I'm sorry, the other monkeys get hit on the head. If one monkey reaches for the banana and all 5 of them get hit on the head, well, they're going to be mad at that monkey because they got hit when he grabbed the banana, right? Well, if you gradually replace each one of those 5 monkeys with a brand new monkey, and then the 6th monkey, which is going to be brand new, now you have a brand new pool So you repeat the experiment 6 times, and then you have a brand new pool, but none of them get hit in this when there's a brand new pool. I forget exactly how it works, but I think you can all look it up. And then that monkey will reach for the banana. They will beat that monkey up and not get hit over the head on that 7th time or whatever. It's kind of like that same thing. We don't know why the sign is there. We don't know why we're not allowed to touch the banana, but we're not allowed to touch the banana. End of story, okay? Even though nothing happens at the end. So I don't know where it originated. I don't know where it came from, but here's my personal opinion. So yes, if Karen wrote some sign with a Sharpie, John Smith, I'm sure that's probably not going to work. But anyway, so they seem to be official signs that have been in place and been placed there and been there for quite some time. And I have only one explanation. The post office deals with mail and the service and of mail. They're a courier of mail. What is mail? Mail is a piece of paper, an envelope that will have name and address, from who it's from, who is it going to, and a stamp. And what they're concerned with is pure privacy. That's my belief. It doesn't say it anywhere. I had to really give it a lot of thought. If you have a video camera, let's say hypothetically, and this is where I think maybe it originated. Let's say that you really, really don't like somebody, but you don't know where they live, right? And you send your buddy, because you know each other. They know your face. They know if you show up, they're going to, run and hide and whatnot. Well, let's say you get your buddy to get a video camera and kind of sit at the post office where your enemy regularly goes. And like I said, again, you don't know where they live and you can't trail them because whatever reason, I don't know, just make it up. And you have your friend walk in with a video camera and record the envelope that they're carrying inside the post office when they're standing in line. You will now have found private information of where they live, where they're sending information to. Again, even a simpler one. You want to find out who this person is communicating with. Who are they? Because letters are the oldest form of communication. I mean, you guys know for the last, even 300 years ago, people played chess. It would take one chess game, would take 7 years, but they would send, E4, E5, knight C3, whatever. That's the way mail is very, very private. And the Postal Service, I think, is concerned with the recording of envelopes, which could potentially be a privacy concern for the individuals involved. That's the only reason. It's not that they're infringing on your First Amendment rights, okay? That's my belief. So, like, let's say UPS or FedEx, I don't know. Do they have the same signs? You tell me. Comments below. Do they? I have never paid attention to them because I never really looked at this issue. If they don't, maybe they don't see it as much of a threat as the federal government. They're not as old as the federal government. I mean, right? When did they begin their operations? The 70s, the 80s, at least, maybe the 60s. I don't know. How long has the United States Postal Service been around? 200 some odd years. So they have held on. Remember the monkeys? They held on to that old belief that this is a security threat, and it has not transferred over to the new couriers like DHL, UPS, FedEx, etc. And maybe I think someone has even said private companies. I was just thinking that. Private companies versus the government. They're just a private company. They don't see it as a security threat, because people are already going to be coming into the business. They don't anticipate there may be the expectation of privacy. Oh, there's one. I literally just came up with it. Or maybe somebody said, I don't know. Maybe I saw it with my side eye. Expectation of privacy. When we think government and we think expectation of privacy, it goes both ways, right? I'm in my vehicle, I have a lowered expectation of privacy. I'm in my home, I have a higher expectation of privacy. I'm in a government building about to mail a confidential letter. I have a pretty high expectation of privacy, I would think, right? So again, that probably goes to the heart of that. So more important question is, can they prosecute you? Because again, auditing is one thing. Okay. But let's say you get arrested. They call the police and you get arrested over this, right? What would be the charge? Now, it won't be videotaping. It will be trespass or something like that, right? You're trespassing, and it's going to be a BS charge completely. But they want to charge you with something. So can they prosecute you? And I vote with 100% certainty that yes, they can. Yes, they can. However, I also believe with 100% certainty that if they do, they will lose. Okay, especially with me at the helm. This is not. There's not a jury in the universe that will send a person to jail unless the prosecution can prove nefarious means. Remember he had the camera because he is the friend of the person who's trying to find out where this person lives so they can come to their house and beat them up. Okay? That would be a clearly prosecutable case. But short of that, unless you're trying to find out specific information, and again, that would be the hardest thing to prove. It's not an element, but it's definitely something the jury's going to be asking. Motive. What is the motive? We look at murder. Why did he kill her? What's the motive? Why did he have the video camera there? What's the motive? Oh, he's a First Amendment auditor. He brought 17 of his buddies to testify that, yeah, this is what we do for a living. We have weekly meetings, blah, 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 blah. Not guilty. Okay? That I would have gotten that easily. I don't even think a prosecutor would bring it all the way to trial. Maybe they'll dismiss it, Anyway, it's a closed system. This is why juries exist. The community gets charged by the prosecutor. They go through the motions, filing motions, hearings, and then jury trial is you're going back to the community. The community decides. You guys, you decide whether or not that person is guilty or not guilty of the offense charged. So by being kicked off the premises, just by being prosecuted, does not mean that this is completely unlawful, illegal, and should not be done. So the government is not going to be able to put people in jail because it has to go through the people, right? It goes through the people, again, the jurors, to put the alleged violators in jail. So that's why I love the United States and I love our system of government, our system of, that allows us for jury trials. So push for jury trials anytime you are ever prosecuted. And if you're in Kentucky, call me. 502-931-6788. It's plastered all over the internet. Now we come to a very interesting portion. I don't think anyone has ever, in the history of YouTube that I could find, analyzed this, the First Amendment auditors through this particular lens. Okay, so you guys are getting some hot information here. Well, maybe not. I don't know. We're about to find out. So we talked about the First Amendment auditors, right? They talk about auditing for the freedom of speech and the press, essentially. Those are the two, right? Well, there are other, and they don't call themselves that, but there are other types of auditors that exist. Now let's look at them. The Second Amendment auditors, those exist. Those are the people who open carry into public places. You may have seen, I remember seeing one many years ago now, maybe at least 3 or 4, the gentleman carrying an AK-47, or not AK, I'm sorry, AR-15 on their strap to their back, just walking down the street, and police arrive, put your hands on your back, lay down, They're testing the waters. Very dangerous territory, but they didn't get shot. I would be scared crapless. I would never do anything like that because it seems like you're putting yourself in open danger. But they feel, hey, it's my right to carry. Especially, I think now it would definitely not be a good idea given the state that we have had so many active shooters in public places. You would probably get shot and killed on the spot just for suspicion. Believe me, it doesn't sound right, but with the heightened level of security that we have, to the point where we need to teach children in our schools what to do when there's an active shooter, okay? Not a good idea. But back, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, when it wasn't so rampant, people would do it. And I think those videos are still floating around YouTube somewhere, so you can find them. So those, I would call those Second Amendment auditors. They're testing to see, am I allowed to carry this or am I not allowed to carry this? Okay. Let's look at the Third Amendment. We're going to go one by one. The Third Amendment, kind of obsolete. That was quartering of troops back in medieval England. If there was a war and a soldier or a group of soldiers would come to your home, private home, and said, you know what, I'm making camp here. I need a place to sleep. You had no choice but to let them in, feed them, give them maybe replacement clothes if they need any, treatment for their medical needs, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of pretty much the last time we really had that was ever a problem, maybe 1864, 1865 during the Civil War. So I don't foresee that being a problem ever again. Knock on wood, I guess. And then we come to the interesting portion of the auditing sections, right? The Fourth Amendment, Fifth and Sixth and Seventh. That's pretty much lawyers, right? This is what we do. I am a fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, and sometimes, actually, usually, I think eighth as well. Yeah, Eighth Amendment auditor on a daily basis. How so? My client gets, let's look at the Fourth Amendment. Unreasonable search and seizure, checkpoints. Is my client allowed the Terry stop, right? 15 minutes. Can you call it a police canine to search? All those things. Maybe my client was stopped in the middle of the street and patted down. Are they allowed to do that? How long can they keep them there? Can they ask for ID? That's all Fourth Amendment protections. Okay. Some people audit them on the street. I've seen the videos. Okay. They come up, give me your ID. No, I don't have to give you my identification. I think that's a fine line. I can't remember. There's a Supreme Court case that says you must identify, maybe not provide identification, but I think you must identify who you are, again, simply for security purposes. It all boils down to security. That's what they always fall back on, because you could be a potential threat. And until they at least understand what you are and who you are, then they are concerned. And that's normal and reasonable. Okay. Don't push the envelope where it's not necessary. I mean, if you look like a college kid with a backpack and they confront you, that's one thing. But if you're wearing a dark hoodie and it's nighttime, that's a whole different story, okay? So it's all, circumstances are everything. Where you are, what you're doing, what you're wearing, who you're with, what do you have in your, on you, in you, like what can they see, what can they not see? All of that is covered by the Fourth Amendment. Fifth Amendment, once again, it has a few parts to it. Serious criminal charges must be started by a grand jury. I think we need to have an overhaul of that system as well. We've all heard you can be indicted. You can indict a ham sandwich because it's really so easy. You don't need any evidence because it's so one-sided. Prosecution brings the proof, etc. Double jeopardy, not really a problem, but it may be a problem in some places. A person cannot have property taken away without just compensation. That's the eminent domain. For example, the building of the wall, can they take property from private citizens and compensate them, etc., for that property? People have the right against self-incrimination. All right. In my latest commercial, shut the hell up. Shut your freaking mouth. Okay. Don't talk to the police. It'll never help you. You will always, 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 always lose. So we see that when an individual decides to, there's even a constitutional guarantee in every state constitution and the federal constitution, of course, as I'm talking about, to not testify against yourself. They cannot be held against you. Okay. And finally, a person cannot be imprisoned without due process of law. Again, I audit these types of things in court on a regular basis. I'm a Fifth Amendment auditor, if you really want to look at it that way. Same with the Sixth. This is my favorite one because only very, 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 very unfortunately few attorneys actually audit the Sixth Amendment like me on a regular basis. That's what we really need. That's my usual, I'll plug it in. I think it's become, this is the third time at least, right? So now it's a habit, I suppose, or whatever it's called, right? This is my call to action to attorneys. Keep testing the government by holding impartial jury trials, okay? They are the final piece of the system. If you settle every case, how can the prosecutor give you a reasonable offer to resolve the case for your client when they know that you go to trial 0% of the time? Offers do get better when you have a reputation that you try cases. Because if you try, even if you try and lose a few of them, so what? You got to learn somehow, trial by fire. That's the way I did it. Okay? When you do this, when you put the system to the test, the system reacts. Okay? And if we all do it, we change the system. That's called the what is it called? The collective effort, right? So that's the main thing, and it bleeds over to the 7th Amendment. That's the right to jury trial in federal cases, and mostly, which are usually civil. In my experience, again, that's not true. I mean, I shouldn't say that, but in my experience, meaning like with the car accidents and stuff like that I have seen where they involve multiple parties, so you have to file federally, not in the state. But the 6th and 7th kind of go hand in hand. It's the right to a jury trial. It's the most. There's some countries where you don't get that. Judges are judge, jury, and executioner. They decide everything. You can't say, well, I want the community to decide for me. No, you say, you're out of here. That's why the United States is such a beautiful place to live in. So I urge attorneys everywhere, and this is what I do. We constantly test the 6th and 7th Amendment. We're 6th. That should be priority numero uno. We are 6th and 7th Amendment auditors. That's what we do. We show the government that it cannot punish without the people, you guys, agreeing, and girls. It's 2019. Come on, Mr. Forman. You all decide, is that person guilty or innocent? I hate not guilty. Guilty or innocent. Okay? Guilty or not guilty. That's what has been put in place 250 years ago, and we're moving away from that more and more and more and more every day, and it's disappointing. It is frustrating. It is appalling. So I urge as many attorneys that will see this, try your cases, especially good cases. Don't let the prosecution walk away with a freebie, because then they will never frickin' learn. All right. I'm getting off my soapbox. All right. And finally, we come to the 8th Amendment. That bars excessive bail, fines, cruel and unusual punishment. Again, this is the usual bond motion that I make on clients who, let's say there's a $20,000 bond, and I say, Your Honor, we should lower the bond. This isn't unreasonable given the circumstances, the person in the community, blah, 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 blah. And then they lower the bond to maybe 20,000, 10%, right? That's the most common, or an unsecured or whatever. And then the person is able to get out of jail while their case is pending, because the easiest way for a prosecutor to get the person to plead guilty is when they're sitting in jail, and they'll do anything just to get out. So that's essentially it. The 9th and 10th are kind of obsolete because they obviously talk about other stuff. You can't really audit those. So the standard, and this pretty much completes my analysis. The standard is reasonableness. Is it reasonable to be where you are given the circumstances? Don't test the limits. Don't push. Don't risk your life. It's not worth it. I mean, some people will, no matter what. I understand. I don't advocate for that. I advocate for the opposite. But there are always going to be people out there. I just want to make it clear where my position is. So to summarize, I am 100% for these so-called First Amendment auditors. They're keeping the government in check on the streets where they can. This is really nothing, zero illegality. They're breaking zero laws as long as they're on government property. If you're on private property, that becomes a problem. But I'm all for it, 100%. So let's open it up. I've been talking for exactly 44 minutes and 44 seconds. That's interesting. Let's open it up to questions, and I'll try to tackle as many of these as I can, in the sense that I don't have all the answers. I'm not, this was a general overview, as you have seen. I don't really have all the answers to everything on the topic. It's not what I do for a living, but obviously I'm an attorney, so I can talk about the law and explain what I believe personally about the law. Obviously, the disclaimer, this is all for entertainment purposes. If you're in Kentucky, I can give you legal advice, but this should not be construed as legal advice. This is the personal sort of pseudo-professional opinion of an actual practicing attorney on a topic that is very, very hot and a lot of people have interest in. Thank you, David Reed. I appreciate that. I'm a reasonable person as well. There's very few of us on the planet, or I'd like to think that I am. Why don't you talk about the fact that you are barred from explaining jury nullification to the jury? It's actually interesting, the Liberty Cause, that you mentioned that. He asked, why don't you talk about the fact that you are barred from explaining jury nullification to your jury? Well, here's the thing. Everybody knows about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. That's actually the topic of next week's topic. So tune in. It will be Sunday at 8 p.m. So I had a poll. People have indicated that the best time to tune in is Sunday night. So Sunday, 8 p.m. Excuse me. It'll be Sunday, March 10th, 8 o'clock, and then March 17th, March 24th, always at 8 p.m. Sundays at 8, basically, is going to be my live stream, I think. That's what you guys voted on, so that's what I'm going to go with. So I will be talking about jury nullification in that next topic. Do you think police are corrupt as judges and lawyers? Some of them, yes. You've all seen it from my videos. It's sad, but it's true. And again, that's because lawyers don't try cases, I feel, or as many as they should. There's always the fallback, well, I didn't get enough money for it, so I'm not doing it. Sure, that can be used as an excuse so many times, especially if it's a complicated case. But if it's a simple one, that will require a few hours of extra. Just get off your ass, okay? Do some work. That's what you went to school for. Come on, do your job. Trust no one. I will next week. Jury nullification. Next week's topic. Stop asking. Take care, Darth. Can you be forced? Oh, this is an interesting one. Lydia Sinclair, totally off topic, but sure, I'll address it since it's my forte. Can you be forced to give blood or urine for a DUI? So forced. Tennessee, for instance, has something called no refusal weekend. That's where if you refuse, they strap you down to a gurney and forcefully extract blood out of you. I don't practice in Tennessee. I know in Kentucky there is no law that allows you to do that. But in Tennessee, it seems to have been upheld, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's being appealed. In Kentucky, I can speak to Kentucky law with confidence. If that happens in Kentucky, I think I would take that to a jury trial, even if they register a whopping number. I may still get an acquittal due to the circumstances. That's my own personal opinion, because the public, I will make the jury weep in pain as to what they did to my client. They will want to convict, but they will not want to convict that person because of what has been done to them. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating. I've just never had that scenario and obviously have to give it more thought. But yes, you in 100% of the states, you can refuse and you lose your license. That's the implied consent, which every state in the union has. If you refuse, you lose your license. But usually, unless you're obviously intoxicated on video or something like that, you will, your case will be a lot better to win in court. The MERB crowd will be coming after me. That's fine. Haters gonna hate. Hey, this is my own personal thing. If you don't have haters, you're not doing it right. Okay. Nathan Quantz, actually, interesting point. Your comment about nonchalantly losing some cases, saying "so what?" I find that scary coming from a practicing attorney. I understand you can't win them all. I probably should have clarified that. I wasn't as clear. I don't mean just, I mean a brand new attorney who does not know what they are doing. Okay. And of course, you're not going to be able to win them all. We're all humans. We're all learning every day. I'm learning every day. If you don't try cases, you're never going to learn. You think what the case I tried yesterday, if I had tried it 3 years ago, I would have been able to win it? Hell no. Hell no. It's experience. Eventually it starts stacking up. Obviously, as a brand new, 6 months out of law school practicing attorney, you don't take a murder case unless you're the prodigy from California who actually did that and won. Or I can't remember if they walked them or they got like manslaughter, but unless you're a prodigy and a genius, of course, you're not going to try a murder case 6 months out. But try your waters. Try some speeding tickets to juries. Not some states don't allow you, like I think New Jersey and West Virginia, I believe. But try simple cases. Don't start out heavy. Okay, you're not going to be able to win them all. I've lost cases I should have won. I've won cases I should have lost. It's not a universal. I'm not being nonchalant about it. I'm being nonchalant to brand new attorneys. If you've been practicing 20 years and you lose a speeding ticket case, either something very, very strange has happened that you were not ready for, or you need more practice, okay? Prodigy, I always get those two wrong. New York is a bench trial on traffic tickets, John Smith. Yeah. A lot of the East Coast. Massachusetts, I think, is two, like I said, New Jersey, West Virginia, a lot of those very, very, very blue states don't even allow juries on the simplest things. We are still, thank God. You can get a jury, by the way, going 1 mile an hour. This is going to blow your minds. I've seen a ticket out of Boone County, no, Gallatin, Boone, one of those two. It's on Highway 71 going from Louisville to Cincinnati or Cincinnati to Louisville. This cat got a 1 mile an hour speeding ticket, and he pled guilty. First of all, who issued that ticket, right? That's my first question. Who is the prick that issued a 1 mile an hour? We all go at least 5 to 10. Come on now. Okay, except me. I always follow the law. Anyway, 1 mile an hour over the speed limit ticket. Are you freaking kidding me? Look, it was so. And then when I saw the pleading, he paid the ticket. I would try that case to a jury. I would honestly want to see I could try that to a jury. I would want to see what 6 men and women would say. That, first of all, they would roll their eyes I think they would permanently have their eyes rolled the entire trial. I can't believe we're doing this, but I have a right to do so. Okay, so the simplest thing in Kentucky we can try. What do I think about red light cameras? When they send them in the mail, non-registered, you have to respond to them. We don't have them in Kentucky, so I have no personal experience with them. I know New York, Illinois, Chicago, Illinois has them. Bigger cities. I mean, I don't know. Didn't Chicago have them break or something the other week? Um, like they expired or something, like the 20 years, 10. I don't remember what it was. I didn't read. I glanced at the article. I don't think I read it fully, but it was really interesting to see how technology can backfire. I don't know. Can you try those cases? Maybe. If we get them in Louisville, we'll probably be 2035 before we get them because it doesn't make economical sense. We don't have as much population. Or maybe I don't know. Who knows? All right. I think that, oh, there's one. Just got here. Have you talked about the problems with DREs? No, they're coming to Kentucky where we're seeing them a little bit more, but again, we're probably 2025 before we're really going to start seeing them. By then, I'll be ready because I've been going to seminars learning about them. There's so many problems. Actually, in October, I will be going to Alpharetta, Georgia, to learn with this one cat by the name of Anthony Palacios. Great, 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 great guy. Police officer turned DRE turned defense. After he quit, he started giving talks and giving seminars 4 or 5 times a year. He gives a seminar in Alpharetta. I went to his field sobriety test seminar in February or March 2017. So I am certified. There's really no certification per se, but I do get a certificate of completion. When that police officer, by the way, says I'm SFST certified, I'm standardized field sobriety testing certified, there's no such bloody thing. Okay. You just went through your training. Thank you, officer. Sit down. Okay. Now DRE, whole different story. I'm DRE certified. Why? Because it's, I think, a 10-week training program. So I'm going to be getting the digest version. I think we're doing it over like 3 or 4 days in October. So I already signed up for that. I can't wait to learn about it. But again, I'm not in a huge hurry because I think in my entire career so far, I've had one DRE and heard about one other one just when I was in court randomly one day. So that was the extent of my experience in DREs. But every time I go to seminars, everybody talks about them because everybody says the words, they're coming. They're coming. So to me, that means, 10 more years because we're behind everybody else. What's your opinion on police pacing for speeding tickets? I'll take a couple more. I want to end at the 1 hour mark. We're about 2 minutes away. So I'll take a couple more. I'm sorry. DRE is a drug recognition expert. I apologize. Just Google it. Again, that will probably be a topic maybe in a couple weeks, maybe at the end of March or April. I'll do that separately if you guys are interested. What is your opinion on police pacing for speeding tickets? It's a lot easier, I think, to win at trial since they don't have concrete evidence and you have to believe the cop. But what is a jury going to do? Probably believe the cop, especially a judge. What do you think about Border Patrol checkpoints? Out of my forte because I'm not like practicing in Arizona or Texas, but within a 100-mile radius, they can do random stops, no probable cause, no reasonable suspicion. DUI checkpoints, do you cooperate, roll down the window, etc.? I mean, I think if you roll your window down just a smidge, you're going to raise his suspicion. But if you are obviously speaking clearly, you don't appear drunk or intoxicated, he may let you go. I've seen that happen, especially if you're talking back with him. Again, what is he doing this entire time you're talking to him? He's noticing your behavior. If you're slouched over, kind of talking to him like this, that's one thing. But if you're alert and paying attention and talking to him, all right, we got another one here, boys. Just let him through. It all depends on the cop, on his mood, it's just whatever. But if you truly just want to assert your right, not open your mouth, get ready for a security check, right? Please pull in there. And if you don't respond, you're going to have to pull in. So it's kind of like impossible to escape at that point. But no, you're under no obligation to cooperate. There is no law that says you must answer the officer's question. Shut your frickin' mouth whenever you can. There's a plug-in for my commercial. That might become my slogan. I've been debating it. What do you guys think? Drop it in the comments below. Shut your frickin' mouth. That's kind of, that's FCC approved, right? So I can say it on national TV. I can say it on any network or whatnot. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. We're hitting that 1 hour mark. Like, comment, subscribe to my channel. I really hope you enjoyed this. This has been very, very fun to do. Very informative for me. I hope it was informative for you as well. I really hope next week, by the way, next week, we will be talking about jury nullification, okay? I did not want to address it today because that is a huge, 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 huge topic in and of itself. They say we're not allowed to talk about it. That's complete horse crap. Yes, we can, but not in the courtroom. So I will be addressing it. I will be talking about it. I will be giving you my own personal take on it, my own opinion. I will be posting it in the community section, so feel free to drop maybe questions that you have. I will be opening the floor preemptively. As you can see, this thing is evolving into something new. We're going to have weekly streams now. I'm going to be voting on topics periodically. Like I said, I already know the next one is jury nullification. The next one after that, maybe we'll talk about my cases. Take kind of like a break for a week. And then after that, maybe we'll talk about DREs, which are drug recognition experts. My apologies. I thought everybody knew. I always feel like these things are common, but I forget who I'm dealing with. I'm not dealing with lawyers, judges, prosecutors in here. Obviously, I'm dealing with the public. So drug recognition experts are police officers trained in that sense. So again, like, comment, subscribe to my channel. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next Sunday, March 10th at 8 p.m. Bye, all.